Welcome everyone. I hope you're all doing great and doing well. Without further ado, let's dive into our story. It was supposed to be a routine road restoration project in a quiet, isolated village near Tafraout city, southern Morocco. In 1999, the local commune finally decided to pave an old, rugged dirt path that connected a remote village to the main road. The dust was thick, and the sound of heavy machinery echoed through the dry valley as a lone excavator operator cleared away piles of earth that had accumulated along the roadside for decades. But as the iron teeth of the excavator tore into a deep mound of soil, the routine vanished. The driver slammed on the brakes. Something unusual had caught his eye, something that did not belong under the earth. Halfway out of the newly uncovered dirt lay two heavy, old Moroccan rugs. At first, he thought they were just discarded household items covered by years of rain and mud. But as he stepped closer and inspected the heavy fabric, his heart dropped. The rugs were tightly rolled into unnatural, heavy human shapes, aggressively bound from top to bottom with thick, rusted metallic clothesline wire. Work stopped instantly. Within an hour, the Royal Gendarmerie and forensic experts rushed to the desolate scene, sealing off the dirt road. When the investigators cut through the tight metallic constraints and unrolled the blankets, a horrifying truth was exposed. Inside lay two cold, fully intact human skeletons. There were no clothes, no identity papers, and no clues. Just bare bones wrapped in expensive blankets, hidden inside a dark ditch for what seemed like nearly a decade. Less than an hour after the gendarmerie left the scene to begin their investigation, a second urgent phone call came in from the construction company. The workers had continued digging, but across the other side of the road, the excavator's bucket hit something else. The investigators rushed back to the exact same location, greeted by another unbelievable discovery. Buried alone in a shallow grave was a third human skeleton. This third victim was entirely different. Unlike the first two bodies, which were stripped naked and wrapped in heavy rugs, this skeleton was fully clothed. The garments, a thick sweater and a long skirt, were severely decayed, rotting away after years beneath the earth. The detectives searched the surrounding dirt for wallets, identity cards, or any documents that could give the victim a name, but they found nothing. The mystery was deepening under the Tafraout sun, forcing the police to wait for the only answers they could get: the forensic laboratory report. Weeks later, the medical examiner's report finally arrived, exposing a terrifying reality. The first two skeletons belonged to a man in his early 50s and a woman in her 40s. The cause of their death was not external violence, but poison, a lethal, silent dose. However, the man's spine also suffered a brutal fracture from a sharp object. The third skeleton belonged to a young woman, aged between 23 and 25, who died from a catastrophic, crushing blow to the skull, likely caused by a heavy hammer. All three had been buried in that dirt for nearly 7 long years. With a timeline of 7 years, the gendarmerie pulled out their dusty archives, searching through every missing person report filed since 1993. They cross-referenced ages, descriptions, and dates, but the local records yielded absolutely nothing. No one in the immediate village had gone missing, and no families were looking for loved ones. The investigators were staring at a brick wall. They had 3 brutally murdered bodies, but without identities. They were hunting ghosts. Their only hope left was the evidence they held in their hands: the rotting clothes of a young girl and 2 heavy Moroccan rugs. Desperate for a breakthrough, the gendarmerie initiated a new strategy. They began summoning local villagers to look at the unearthed blankets and the young woman's clothes. For days, everyone denied recognizing them. But then, a breakthrough emerged. A mother who had recently returned to Tafraout walked into the station. The moment her eyes fell upon the decayed sweater and the long skirt, her composure broke. It was her daughter, Hanan, who had vanished without a trace 7 years ago at the age of 25. The clothes matched perfectly, and subsequent DNA testing solidified the tragic truth. Hanan had finally been found. While Hanan's identity was confirmed, the 2 naked skeletons remained nameless. The detectives pushed forward, showing the distinctive red rabat rugs to the remaining villagers. Finally, a wealthy local farmer named Mostafa was called in. The moment Mostafa examined the geometric patterns on the wool, his face turned pale. He recognized them instantly. They belonged to a married couple, Hamad and Aisha, who had worked as caretakers on his nearby, isolated farm 7 years ago. Records in Taroudan confirmed their missing status. DNA matched. The 3 ghosts finally had names. The focus immediately shifted to Mostafa's isolated farm, situated just meters away from where the bodies were unearthed. Mostafa explained that Hamad and Aisha had worked for him for 2 years, but suddenly disappeared in early 1993. When questioned, Mostafa revealed a crucial detail. He didn't live on the farm himself. The property was managed entirely by his young, unmarried son, who lived there completely alone. According to the son, the couple had abruptly packed their bags in the middle of the night to visit a sick relative in Taroudan, leaving their unpaid wages and belongings behind. The gendarmerie immediately brought the son in for questioning, but as the interrogation progressed, the fabric of his story began to unravel. The son claimed he personally witnessed the couple leave with a small truck, whereas the father insisted his son had told him they vanished overnight without a word. When confronted with this glaring contradiction, the son grew defensive, nervously claiming his father must have forgotten the details. But the detectives knew better. Why would a couple pack their heavy rugs, only to be buried inside them, naked a mile away? The shadows of suspicion fell squarely on the lonely farmer's son. Trapped by his own lies and facing the relentless pressure of the investigating judge, the son's resistance finally collapsed. In a quiet, trembling voice, he confessed to a sequence of events so brutal it shocked even the most experienced detectives. 7 years prior, he was living a reckless, solitary life on the farm, frequently hosting wild nights filled with alcohol. One of his regular guests was his secret lover, Hanan, the young woman whose body would later be found fully clothed on the opposite side of the road. On that fateful night in 1993, a violent argument erupted between the young couple. Drunk and fueled by intense jealousy, the son flew into a rage when Hanan insisted on leaving. When she yelled back, his anger turned fatal. He grabbed a heavy hammer from the floor and struck her squarely in the skull, killing her instantly. Hearing the terrifying screams, the caretakers, Hamad and Aisha, rushed into the room. They discovered Hanan's lifeless body in a pool of blood. Terrified, the couple promised they would remain silent and leave the farm forever. But their promise wasn't enough to calm the killer's paranoia. After burying Hanan under the cover of darkness, the son spent a month consumed by fear. He was terrified that Hamad and Aisha would eventually talk, exposing his horrific crime to the world. He decided the only way to protect his secret was to eliminate the witnesses. One evening, he brought food and drinks contaminated with a lethal dose of poison to their doorstep. But when the poison failed to act immediately, his impatience took over. Armed with a heavy axe, he attacked the couple, brutally murdering them in their own sanctuary. To delay their identification if they were ever found, the killer stripped the couple completely naked. He dragged their heavy bodies in a yard, rolled them tightly inside their own red rabat rugs, and bound them with metallic wire before burying them in a deep ditch across the road. He gathered all their clothes and belongings, burning them to ashes behind the farm. For 7 long years, he lived a normal life, even getting married and raising a family on the very same land. But justice, though delayed, was absolute. The son was sentenced to life imprisonment, a dark, permanent reminder that the earth never keeps the secrets of blood forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next case.